This is the Washington Times front page for Monday, November 28th, 2022. Thanks for starting your week with us. I'm George Gerbo. A planned border fence in Finland to separate it from Russia looks to be a major geopolitical statement. Ben Wolfgang reports Finnish border guards have announced they will begin construction in the spring on a nearly 2-mile stretch of fence along the Finland-Russia border near the eastern town of Imatra, according to European news outlets. Beyond that initial construction, Finnish leaders this month proposed spending up to $143 million to build many more miles of fence that would eventually stretch well over 100 miles. Such a fence could cover 10 to 20% of Finland's 833-mile border with Russia and would be the largest boundary between any European nation and Russia. Finnish officials have avoided directly tying the border fence to either the war in Ukraine or their country's NATO bid. Small businesses could be shut out of lucrative government contracts because of the compliance costs imposed under a proposed rule which would require large federal contractors to reduce and publicly disclose their greenhouse gas emissions. The proposed rule, Jeff Murdoch reports, would make the U.S. the first government to require major federal contractors to set climate goals in line with the 2015 Paris Agreement. Biden administration officials say using the federal government's purchasing power as a private sector cudgel could eliminate roughly 85% of greenhouse gas emissions associated with the federal supply chain. That's more than twice the emissions generated from the 300,000 buildings and 600,000 vehicles that the federal government owns outright, the White House said in a fact sheet. The proposed rule estimates the federal contracting industry would incur $604 billion in implementation costs in the first year, and a little more than $442 billion annually after that. Border Patrol agents were assaulted 48 times along the southern U.S. border in October, the most in any month since the start of fiscal year 2020. Just 28 assaults on agents at the southern border were reported last October, and just 16 in October of 2021, Stephen Dinan reports. But officials at Customs and Border Protection said the 61 assaults last month across 48 incidents weren't far off from the numbers from most of 2022 and were in line with what would be expected given the number of illegal crossers. Agents say they've seen improvements from the more freewheeling days at the end of the last decade. From 2008 to 2010, the Border Patrol tallied more than 1,000 assaults each year. You can read all of these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. You can also find our entire lineup of Washington Times podcasts at WashingtonTimes.com/podcasts. The Supreme Court continues to consider a case dealing with the use of racial preferences in school admissions policies. Alex Sawyer reports Solicitor General Elizabeth Proligar said in arguments that taking away affirmative action would make the country less secure, citing its use at service academies and other schools with officer candidate training programs. Proligar told the court that the academies have tried to attract qualified minority students by increasing outreach, allowing more nominations from certain congressional districts, and using other proxies, such as socioeconomics. The cases before the court involved the admissions policies at Harvard University and the University of North Carolina, which ask applicants about their race. The schools acknowledge they used the answers to try to increase the numbers of Black, Hispanic, and American Indian students. And finally, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman received a warm welcome on a visit to Thailand earlier this month, perhaps ending one of the world's odder diplomatic standoffs. In 1989, a Thai servant employed by the ruling Saudi family stole some 200 pounds of jewelry and other valuable gems, one of which was a rare 50-carat blue diamond, among the largest and most valuable of its kind in the world. The country restored full diplomatic ties in January after more than 3 decades of hostility when Thai officials visited Saudi Arabia. The Crown Prince's reciprocal visit, Thai officials hope, can get both countries past the incident. The diamond was never returned, and its current location is still a mystery. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Washington Times in any major podcast app. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.